Hi, I'm Jennifer Barkin, and welcome to the Dish on Divorce. Today, I'm happy to have with me in the studio Jennifer Aternino, and Jennifer has a company called My Children and Me. Jennifer is also a family mediator, and she teaches parents, well, how to be better parents. And a lot of people say to me, why would you have another family mediator on your show? And the reason is because I think we all have our strengths. There's room for us all, and I admire Jennifer, so I wanted to bring her on with me today. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. You know, it's about helping parents co-parent through this difficult time also. So not necessarily making them better. I guess everyone has their own styles, but it's very heartbreaking for me to see parents struggling to co-parent when they have their kids in common, trying to get through it.
It's really difficult often, because often when people come to you, they're coming because they're having issues with their ex-spouse, and maybe they don't have a separation agreement yet, and maybe they're fighting over finances or parenting time. So it's a very difficult thing to be able to say, hey, I'm going to put my kids first. And you have to be a very strong person to do that, and have tools in your toolbox to do that, and not to drag, I call it, all the junk and all the garbage into it.
Well, you're precisely right. And a lot of times when people are going through this difficult time, they do feel resentment or hurt. So they tend to bring that along when making decisions. And as you know, there are so many important decisions that you have to make that are going to last, if not a very long time, for the rest of your life. So they have to think outside of the box at their goals. So that's what I do. I distinguish myself different from a therapist, because a therapist is looking at the beginning of time till now. I focus on the present, looking forward to the future. What do you want? What do you want for yourself? What do you want as a co-parent? What do you want to be as a parent? So if we're forward-facing and we're trying to be the best person we can be, then things start to fall into place and make sense when making decisions, as opposed to holding on to resentment and hurt.
So essentially what you're doing is you're coaching people, because in therapy, and therapy can be great, and it can be a real eye-opening experience for many. But the difference in therapy and coaching is really where that therapy looks at maybe the family you grew up in, your family of origin, and family systems theory, and how everybody's role in that family played up against one another. Where in coaching, we park it and go, okay, that's very interesting, but it's not really helpful right now. And say, how are you going to get here?
Absolutely. You definitely have to learn more about what makes you happy as a person, and to realize what it is that you actually want. Because people need time to grieve the relationship. They need time to figure out how they're going to be as a single person again. And I see many people who decide to recouple really quickly because they feel that it's going to help heal themselves. But really, if you're not healing yourself from the inside in the beginning, when you do recouple, you're going to bring all that with you, and it's just going to be set up for disaster. And if you're going to work on yourself and you're going to make yourself feel like you totally are giving the opportunity for a self-love, then you are going to have a really fair shot when you are going to start a life with someone else, or just be strong on your own.
A lot of people go from relationship to relationship. I get it. Because when you think of the new relationship, also it's sparkly, it's shiny, it's new. Somebody's telling you that you're beautiful, you're smart, you're wonderful, and you do that comparison. Well, my ex never did these things for me. So it's very easy to get sucked into that very, very quickly.
It is.
But you're so right, because what happens is you're now ignoring all of the warning signals that we all have them, that this new person comes with. And you jump from relationship to relationship.
And most often I find that people tend to search for partners that are the complete opposite of their ex. And that doesn't necessarily always lead to a good relationship. And they do ignore warning signs because they think, oh, well, this person's giving me freedom, or this person's giving me attention, or this person really is interested in what I have to say. But at the end of the day, you have to focus on yourself and what it is that you need as a person to really level off all of your empty boxes so that you feel that you don't need someone to fill those boxes. You're filling them yourself. And that way you're able to get into a really healthy relationship when you're ready to.
I think that's so important. I think that healing is so important. And I totally agree with you that opposite is not necessarily what's right for you, because if you really take the time to think of why you got together with person number one in the first place, there were probably some good things,
of course,
about that person that attracted you to them, that you respected in them. And then the problem is, when a relationship breaks down, especially if there's anger involved, people stop seeing those good things that other parent had.
Absolutely.
To begin with.
That's interesting you say that, because pretty much every time I have a mediation session and I have both parents together, one of the things I start with is take a moment to write down 3 good things about your partner. And they both look at me and I'm just like, take your time and just really think about it. And then they have to say it to each other. And the reason I do this is because I feel like it starts it off on a very positive note where you're not there to attack the other person. You're trying to make decisions together, what's best for your family. And it's so much more rewarding when you can do that and say, okay, yeah, we can agree on that. And that is best for the kids, as opposed to just hurting the other person.
I have that question, well, not the same, but a variation on an intake form that I have. And the question's worded, tell me something that you do together as parents. And my thought behind that is, if you're going to be co-parenting, right, you have to be able to show your children that, well, you're not together with their mom or their dad.
Right.
That you do respect you have to, for this to work, this co-parenting to work.
Right.
That you have to back each other up. So I like to see at that starting point, can they acknowledge anything good about each other?
Absolutely.
Sometimes they can't.
And, you know, I feel that children will respond very quickly to the attitudes of their parents. So if the parents are going to be in constant conflict or even having the tension, the children feel that. They know what's going on. So the children will respond in acting out, in having tantrums, doing different things that the parents will now not really recognize, or even if they do, they're not able to correct it because it is just so much behind it. There's so many layers. So when I go into a situation and I try to help people co-parent, I always say, you have to be the best version of yourself so that you can show your children the best version of you. And that way, when we are going through day-to-day lives, the children are feeling that. They're seeing the smiles that are genuine, and they're feeling the energy around.
One thing I like to say to parents, because sometimes when people are very stuck in anger, they're not forward thinking, right? They are stuck in, he did this and she did this and mad. But I'll say, in the future, your child is this age right now. Do you think your child's going to have a graduation from high school? Is there a chance that you two may be grandparents together? And all those sort of questions. And of course, they're saying yes.
Right.
And I'm like, so let me ask you, do you want your child to come off the graduation stage? You're sitting here and you're sitting here, and your child not knowing who to go to.
Right.
Or would you rather show your children that, you know what, we're not for each other. The marriage didn't work out, or the relationship didn't work out. But we can put on our big girl panties or our big boy pants and make this about you, about your day, and park our garbage over here.
Right. It's about loving your children more than hating your spouse.
That's right. I love my children more than I hate my ex.
That's right. And, I think that it's really important to recognize that, of course, there's going to be a lot of frustration in the beginning and so many roller coaster of emotions. But it's really about understanding that there's life after divorce. There's so many different things you can still experience, and it's your choice to how you want it to be. You can have years of resentment and hurt and frustration, or you can just try to be the best person you can be moving forward. And that's not to say that that the couples or the ex-couples that I work with are always getting along and at the end of the day, peachy and everyone's happy. Sometimes I only work with one side because the other spouse is refusing to work. So we'll do the coaching and I'll say, listen, you can't control the way the other person is going to act. You can control only how you act and react. And that's it. So you can choose to be happy. You can choose to push forward in this way. If they're going to be that way, then unfortunately, that's what they have to deal with and live with. And that's their choice.
And it's so important because you can only control how you act. Mm-hmm. You can only control your reaction, especially with a high conflict personality. Mm-hmm. A lot of people will say narcissist. I'll say narcissistic tendencies, for example.
Right.
They're going to do what they're going to do.
Right.
And they're going to pull the same stuff over and over and over and over. So
I hear that so often. You know, my ex is a narcissist. We can't get along. And I say, okay, well, then that's why you're not with them. Move forward. You don't have to be held back by somebody. You can just decide what you want for your life and move. And, you know, it would obviously be fantastic in a perfect world if both co-parents can move on with their lives and be civil towards each other. But it's not always possible. And it's not something that I will talk negatively about if they can't, because if they can't, they can't. Sometimes it's just impossible to work with one side and try to make them change their mind. But the truth is it's all about an individual's wants for their own life. And they have to make decisions based on what they're given moving forward, regardless of if it's going to be amicable or not.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that every situation is different. In the ideal world, we want people to get along and because we know that it's not the divorce or the separation that's hurt the children or that's going to cause damage to the children down the road in their own relationships.
Right.
Like that. If the parents can get along decently for the sake of the kids, you know, the children see that and the children do just fine. Often better than children that grew up in a household that was unhappy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a big concern for a lot of parents who are deciding to separate. I mean, I get clients in all different stages of the process, sometimes before they separate, sometimes right the day after, sometimes at the end now when their separation agreement's already written and they want to be able to communicate better. But really, a lot of the times when they come to me in the beginning and they say, I'm just so afraid of how my children are going to be affected by us having a broken home. And I say, well, if you had two happy homes and the kids could actually have these moments with you where you're in a good state, isn't that much better than all of the tension and them feeling nervous all the time and like they're stepping on eggshells? You want them to feel relaxed and happy wherever they are. And there's so much due diligence and research that I've done on these specific types of cases. And it's always better living in two happy homes than one home that's just going to be something that they're going to want to role model later on in their own lives. You want them to treat their future spouse respectfully with love, and they're going to ultimately react how they see in their lives what's happened. If mom and dad are always fighting, they're going to think, well, that's normal. And that's what should happen. And it's something that people should give more merit to, is how their every day-to-day life is and how it will improve if they are happy.
For sure. Now, COVID has really done a lot and made stressful situations even worse.
Yeah.
Are you seeing a lot more of parental alienation in your practice?
Very truthfully, I'm seeing a lot of nesting happening because people aren't wanting to go to different homes with the pandemic happening and don't have...
I'm going to stop you. Yeah? Explain to the viewers what nesting is.
Oh, I'm sorry. So nesting is when you want the children to live in the same home as both parents so that they don't have to go from home to home. And the parents share the responsibilities on their time. And a lot of times when parents are coming to me, they haven't been splitting up time. They're just living in the same home and having the kids. So they're acting like a family, but they're not actually having that separation put in place, which should be, because it causes way more tension and anxiety. So the first thing that I usually recommend to my clients is if you are going to live in the same home while you're separated, and you can make that work, that's fantastic, but there has to be strict boundaries put in place.
Yes.
You need to have times that you're going to be with the children, and it's your responsibility to cook dinner, put them to bed, make sure they have their bedtime routine, et cetera, et cetera. The other parent can choose to go in the basement if there's nowhere to go during COVID. They can do anything else they want, but it's now mom or dad's time. And with that schedule put in place, not only is it more, it flows better, but when there is going to be a division of property and people are going to go in different homes, they're going to have a more regular routine that they know, okay, now it's time for dad, now it's time for mom. And it seems to transition a little bit easier than just having everyone together and a little bit of a misguided
and I
direction.
think that it might actually give each parent a feeling of relief because the other parent has proven that they are able to do these things. Because often, what I hear, what I'm sure you hear is, I was the stay-at-home parent all of these years.
Yes.
I gave every bath. I made every meal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really hard for the parent that was that full-time caregiver or performing all of the parental duties
Mm-hmm.
in caring for children to find out, well, now that you're separating,
Right.
things are going to change because often that fear, well, my partner is incapable. And I
Right.
think that might give them a little bit of relief. You know what?
Mm-hmm.
They're actually doing a pretty good job.
Absolutely. I mean, and on the flip note, sometimes one parent thinks, oh, it's so easy. You do it, I can do it too. And then when they're actually having to step up to the plate, they're like, this is a lot of work.
It's hard.
This is not easy, And it's interesting because I do deal more specifically with moms who have been the stay-at-home parent who are extremely anxious to now split their time. And they say, oh, that they're not a good father or whatever the case may be. And then I say, give them the opportunity to show you, because in my experience, I've seen so many parents step up when they need to. And they may have been very not present in the past, but now when they have to be, they do show up. And sometimes it's not the case, but it's a really important opportunity for the other parent to be more present in the children's lives because it only benefits the children.
Totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree. And I think it's important for people to know as well that people can have different parenting styles. And it doesn't mean that they're not as good a parent.
Absolutely. And, there's so many cases where I'll have parents say, well, X doesn't bathe the children every day and they need to bathe every day. And I say, well, when they go to camp, do they bathe every day? There's a lot of
camp when the kids used to go to camp.
Yes. And exactly back in the day. But,
the old days.
The good days. But I think that, there's a lot of emphasis put on things that are not as important in the long term and in the grand scheme of things. But parents look at those things because they are just trying to grasp onto things. But they need to just relax and know that if the parent is capable and willing and keeping the children safe, then that's the most important thing.
The kids are going to be all right.
The kids are going to be all right.
So Jennifer, thank you for coming today. Where can the viewers find you?
Well, my website is www.mychildrenandme.com. So I have my email set up there and information. They can always reach out to me anytime. I also have a couple of Facebook pages that are set up so people can meet different professionals in the industry. One is Step by Step Family Solutions, and the other is divorcingtoday.com. And I just really wanted to give people separating a little bit of insight because it's so confusing and scary when you're going through the process, not knowing what the next step to take is or who to contact or Googling best lawyer in Toronto. There's so many different things that are unknown, which is scary, but knowledge is power. And the more information you have, the less anxiety I think it brings.
And I always tell people all the time, learn who the divorce professionals are.
Yes.
Connect with those that you feel understand your situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a much better route than relying on your family and friends because your family and friends, they love you, but they're biased and they may not have all the information.
Absolutely.
So thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm Jennifer Barkin, and thank you for joining me on The Dish on Divorce.